So I'm going to show you two examples. We're going to show you how to solve a proportion like this where the variable is on the bottom and a proportion like this where the variable is up top. But both methods are pretty much going to be the same thing. But first, I want to show you an example of what I'm going to use to solve those problems, so why it works. So we have 1/2 equal to 2/4. These are called equivalent fractions because 2/4 is just double the amount of this, right? Double this, you get 2. Double this one, you get 4. So that's why these are equivalent fractions. And one thing you're going to notice is that if I were to take this number and this number, if I were to multiply these two, 1 times 4, and multiply these two as well, 2 times 2, you're going to see that 1 times 4 is 4, and 2 times 2 is 4. And these numbers are equal to each other. That's always going to be true. When you have a proportion where two factors have the same value, they're equal to each other. If you were to use, they call it the cross product property. If I multiply these two values together, it'll always equal the product of these two. So when you multiply these two, they'll always equal the same amount, no matter what. We can use that idea to solve this type of problem. So for example, that lets me know that if I multiply this number times this number, or in this case 3 times x, that should also equal this number times this number, 13 times 8. They should have the same value. So now if I simplify this, I get 3x equals 104. And now I just got to solve it. So you can see here we have 3 times x, and this is pretty much a one-step equation. So opposite of multiplying by 3, I know is to divide by 3. And since I'm dividing by 3 on this side, I got to do the same thing on the other side to balance the equation. So notice that we divided both sides by 3, which means we're using division property of equality. And now when I simplify, 3x divided by 3 is just 1x. And then when I divide 104 divided by 3, so 104 divided by 3, I actually get a decimal. So I'm going to put a little wavy equal sign. That means that I'm rounding. But basically it comes out to be 34.66. It keeps repeating the sixes. And they asked me, if you look here, nearest round to the nearest tenth. The tenths place is always the first value after the decimal to the right. So that means I don't want any numbers past that. And when I round this out, I can see that x is going to be approximately, or about, 34.7. Because the 6, we know that it's a little bit more than halfway, so this is going to round up to 34.7. And that'll be my final answer. And now in our second example, it's similar to the first one. The only difference is the variable is on the top instead of being in the denominator. So that's the numerator. But same idea. You're always going to, using the cross product property, I'm going to take the v and the 17. If I multiply those two together, that should equal this number times this number, 7 times 13. Now when I simplify, I'm going to get 17v on this side equals, and then 7 times 13 is 91. And then now you can see here that it's just a one-step equation now. So this is 17 times v. Opposite of multiplying by 17 is division, so divide by 17. I got to balance the equation, so I'll do the same thing on the other side. So again, notice we're using division property of equality to solve it. And now when I simplify the left side, I get 1v equals, and when you divide this in the calculator, you're going to get a decimal. We get, and I'm going to change this equal to a wavy equal sign because I'm actually not writing down all the numbers that the calculator shows me. Because again, we have to round to the nearest tenth. So the number I got back was 5.3529 ... So it keeps going, and that's why we put the little wavy equal sign, because I'm not writing all the numbers that were shown on the calculator. All right, there's more to it. But again, round to the nearest tenth. So that means the tenth place is always the first value after the decimal. So that means I don't want numbers past that. And when you're rounding, you look at this number to the right. If it's 5 or more, think about 5 as like a halfway point. If your number is like halfway, then you know that it's going to round up to the nearest value. So the next number up will be 5.4. And that would be my final answer.